Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webcast, Frequency, the Key to Recognition and Engagement, sponsored by Achievers and presented by Megan M. Bureau of Talent Culture. This webcast has been pre-approved for 1 HRCI and 1 SHRM credit. Please be sure to attend the complete webcast in order to receive these credits. If you have questions during the webcast, click Q&A in your webinar controls and type them there. Once the presentation has begun, I will post a link to the slides and a link to an exit survey in the chat area. A new tab will open in your browser with this survey. Please be sure to complete it as soon as the webcast has ended. So at this time, I would like to take a few moments to introduce you to today's presenter, Megan M. Bureau. Megan is the founder and CEO of Talent Culture, a globally recognized HR technology analyst, author, speaker, and brand strategist. She has worked with hundreds of companies from early stage startups to global brands like Microsoft, IBM, and Google. She is consistently included in lists of top online influencers and writes about HR tech and people management at SHRM, Forbes.com, and a variety of other media outlets. She is a sought-after personality and is a regularly featured speaker at global business conferences and serves on boards for leading HR and technology brands. We are also pleased to have her here with us again today, and at this time, I will now pass it over to you, Megan.
Thank you so much, Rhonda, and all of you in the audience today. I'm thrilled to be here. Let's open it up. Let's dive right into this. How often should we recognize our workforce and why? How do we best leverage recognition to drive engagement and performance, right? By doing it, for starters, right? Doing it frequently, strategically, appropriately. The latest research on the role of frequency and recognition shows a strong correlation between frequency and effectiveness when it comes to boosting engagement. Frequency helps scaffold a whole culture of recognition that takes root in the workforce and can develop its own momentum. A self-propelling recognition culture is kind of like what I like to envision this as, right? Think of that for a minute. Welcome that participation from your workforce, right? You can take real-time measurements on what's working and how to better optimize recognition for stronger results. So today, I'm going to be focusing on the role of cadence and frequency and the strategies that can help you achieve phenomenal results when it comes to employee engagement, okay? I want to give you some tangibles. I know sometimes you're out there and you're going, wow, it sounds like a buzzword again, or here she is, there's Megan tweeting again something on work trends. What does that really mean? I want to give you these tools today, right? So let's dive into what I'm going to cover. We are going to cover new insights on recognition and engagement, how to determine the ideal recognition cadence for your employees, how to build a formal recognition program, the best tools for recognition for today's workforce, how to make it meaningful. This is one of my favorites. If it's not meaningful, don't bother, seriously. How to make it effective too. How leaders can steer a recognition-driven transformation. And yes, I just said the word transformation, okay? So first, if you're sipping that coffee or green tea or your bevy of choice, Rhonda and I want to make sure you are with us and fully present. So we are going to start with a poll question. So I want to know, how often do you recognize your employees? Daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly? You have no idea what's happening there. Appreciate your time on this.
All right.
I'm going to give you a couple moments here. Yeah.
Yeah, lots of responses are coming in. I'll let it roll about another 10 seconds, folks, and then I will share the results with Megan, and she will share them with you. And there you are, Megan.
Whoa, this is what I call a potpourri of results, everyone. Goodness. Okay, we have 10% of you at daily, 17% of you at weekly, 21% at monthly, 20% quarterly, 15% yearly, and 18% of you, no idea, Thanks for your honesty today. We appreciate you. We're glad you're here. Okay, so there is completely a wide range of answers on this question. And I think it really shows that we're still coming to grips with how frequency and recognition can be optimized to achieve goals in terms of how you're engaging. So thank you so much for weighing in. That means a lot to us. And I want to recognize each and every one of you right now in real time, right? All right, so let's talk about new insights. We all like to be recognized, not for one piece of fireworks, but for the ledger of our daily work. And this is quoted by Neil Armstrong. Many of you know him as the Apollo 11 astronaut. I think sometimes when we get into that HR bubble, we don't get the chance to remember what drives outstanding approaches to talent. And it isn't just a secret within our industry, right? But this is a much larger combination of empathy, of common sense, and a primary desire to inspire those we work with to be their best. And this isn't just because we have analytics to run, but because striving to excel and bring others with us is just part of being human. Neil Armstrong, right? He's fighter pilot, professor, pioneering astronaut, and the first man on the moon. He famously recognized the entire human race when he achieved that particular goal. He made that achievement about us, right? It was an extraordinary expression of the power of recognition that we all got this feeling that we shared this with him, right? It brought us together, it brought our country together at a very divided and turbulent time. Now, I'm not going to get into politics right now, but we're all kind of feeling that right now, right? So it's relevant even today. I think recognition is a powerful engine, and I think it's one small step for man and one giant leap for mankind, right? So remember that, right? It's about all of us. All right, here's some juicy new data for you all. How many times have you heard someone say, they must know how I feel about them, or they know we appreciate them. We don't have to make a fuss. We don't have to spend the money, right? Whether we're shy or too busy or we're overwhelmed or we're putting it off until like it's the right time, whatever it is, we tend to pocket our demonstrations of gratitude and appreciation, particularly in the workplace. That is a bad thing to do, everyone. It's a mistake, right? According to the Harvard Business Review, more than 80% of American employees say they do not feel recognized or rewarded, despite the fact that U.S. companies are spending more than a fifth of their budget on wages. And over 1/4, this is 26% of employees, they rank recognition for my work as one of the top 3 key factors in staying with their current employer. And this is according to Achiever's latest report, The Complacency Effect, okay? So now there's a compelling argument to work meaning into something more than a paycheck, right? It's not just about money that prompts us to keep pushing ourselves, to keep performing, collaborating, communicating. It's a sense of belonging to a larger mission in a community, right, of like-minded people, whether we know them all or not. You don't have to, right? We have so many ways in which we connect. The workforce is a community in essence, right? If you think about it from that perspective. Recognition is a powerful way to foster that sense of mission and community. And that then drives engagement. It also drives something that I care deeply about, and I know many of you do as well, retention, right? This is so very important. If we are not retaining our people, right, why do we want to stay with one employer when we could make the same salary or fee at another's? As an employer, you need to be asking that question all the time, right? And answering it with the tools that increase cohesiveness, belonging, performance, kind of like recognition. Because there's basically a recognition gap going on. Employees want to feel recognized for their work, but you have to ask yourself, are you able to provide this kind of recognition? You got to be honest about it. Are we leveraging recognition as a strong driver of retention, meaning, a cadence of acknowledgement for work and accomplishments? Do we understand how to leverage that for workforce and business results, right? So think about all of this. The data is behind us going, we have a problem here, let's fix it. So what makes recognition meaningful isn't just a well-worded email or a bright message. It's the factor of time and the connection to performance at that time. It's being open about your appreciation and gratitude, not just expressing it every once in a blue moon, right? Those blue moon moments, I like to say, may actually backfire, right? Since they make it obvious that this is so rare, it's kind of uncool. It's setting the recognition in context by having it be part of a through line. This is a storyline you're putting together, right, of effort and improvement, and the story's real. It's genuine, right? So according to some more research by Achievers from the Greatness Gap, 41% of employees felt they were recognized at their preferred frequency. 60% felt their managers did not provide sufficient in-the-moment feedback. 53% said they didn't feel recognized for their achievements at work at all, right? So this is very interesting because recognition doesn't have to be complicated. It can be simple as a thank you. And according to Deloitte, 85% of professionals want to hear thank you in day-to-day interactions. 54% of you would be happiest with a verbal thank you. So daily thank yous, do you think that's really hard? Ask yourself that. You can pulse in a thank you in a second on mobile. The Deloitte research just focuses on the power of saying thank you in the workplace. They correlated this data from 16,000 professionals. It's the kind of research, as is the research coming out from Gallup and the insights out of Achievers, that really addresses today's realities in the modern workforce. So we should definitely be listening to this. I mean, numbers don't lie, right? Deloitte's practical magic of, let me say that again. Woo, I'm tongue-tied here today, folks. Deloitte's practical magic of thank you research uncovered some clarifying differences it's important to know about. We need to know how different segments of our workforce want to be recognized. And one major distinction has to do with the difference between how women and men want to be recognized for their efforts. Turns out, everyone, women have different preferences than men, go figure. And certainly being able to meet those preferences could have a big impact on engaging your women employees, right? 36% of women prefer a written thank you compared to 28% of men. 34% of women prefer to be recognized for success compared to 46% of men. 27% of women want to be recognized for their knowledge. 22% want to be recognized for their efforts. 22% also want to be recognized for living the organization's core values. So this set of statistics actually gives us some great ways to think about recognizing everyone, doesn't it? Recognition doesn't have to be just a matter of great job, you finished the report. In fact, it shouldn't be focused on that kind of a milestone, I would say. It should be focused on all the energy and intent we put into working every single day, right? So next time one of your female or employees or the women out there, right, they do something you want to thank her for, right? Thank her for it and put it in writing. All right, let's talk about cadence, because I believe that this is a very, very important piece to all of this working. There have been a lot of studies on how we remember praise versus criticism. Now, we're not pretending that the only feedback we need to give our people is praise. Of course, feedback and critiques are necessary for growth, and withholding those shortcomings actually could harm you, right? But in terms of how we remember the positive feedback versus the negative, we remember negative far more. I bet you a lot of you are thinking to yourself, yeah, I remember that too, right? There's a reason. It turns out that we don't store information on praise and criticism in the same place in our brains. A negative message triggers a lot more ruminating and thinking when we receive it. We tend to run all these factors over in our minds, right? Take a positive message, it doesn't nearly take up that bandwidth. We tend to just kind of move on. An interesting Harvard study asked 238 professionals working on 26 different projects to track their own highs and lows in a diary. From over 12,000 entries, the researchers found that the negative effect of a setback at work on happiness was more than twice as strong as the positive effect of an event that signaled progress. The problems overrule the positives. How do you overrule the problems? Increase the positives, increase the sense of growth, progress, connection to the objectives of the organization. We need to know again and again, and this is for any rank you are, right? Doesn't matter what your role is. This is any of you, right? So let's talk about how we determine cadence, right? What stands in our way? Part of our job is to offset human nature itself. You can't do that if you're only recognizing people a few times a year, right? But admit it, part of human nature is to be fearful. So in a discussion on planning frequency, a number of roadblocks often come up, right? I've seen this time and time again, and I think the reluctance to re-envision how we institute recognition and other new processes, particularly when they're centered with technology, has to do with fear. The common concerns among leaders, HR, and managers are actually pretty simple. They speak to workplace anxiety, right? Business anxiety, something that might just offset the normal culture, in air quotes, whatever that means, right? Regular workflow and daily learning, that to bring in a new way to celebrate this could be too distracting, God forbid, right? Or conspicuous. Why are you doing something different? It's absolutely understandable that we have to mitigate any unforeseen consequences with big changes, right? But in this case, the same reason we're failing at engagement is also driving a reluctance to transform. And this bugs me kind of, you know that, right? It's bugging me because I want us to move forward. So how, when we recognize our employees, fits into this, right? So here's 5 concerns I hear from many of you. What if we rock the boat, right? Not providing recognition is what's rocking the boat these days, actually, right? Leadership that falls flat on culture risks, increased disengagement, and employees are always looking for greener pastures, right? So recognition, when done with cadence and frequency, is actually a clear shaper of a more positive, proactive, and modern work culture, right? What if we deliver it wrong and alienate people? Well, guess what, everybody? There's so many ways to transmit and deliver engagement, and there's a lot of research and guidance as to best practices available. The echo of silence that can ring across a department after a big accomplishment is likely to be more alienating, right? Regardless of your differences, and in fact may unite employees around a common problem. So doing initial surveys to find out how your employees would like to be recognized may be very revealing in this regard. Okay, what if we still don't do it enough and everybody still wants more? Or what if we still don't do it enough, right? You're kind of like, oh boy. So Achievers' failure to engage study reports that a resounding 82% of employees strongly or somewhat agree they wish they received more recognition. So doing more of something your employees wish is far better than doing than not doing, right? So again, as you establish a recognition program and you adjust it, because that's going to happen, you can survey and communicate with employees and managers on what's working and when. But real-time recognition is a key driver of engagement, and that can't happen if it's not in real time. So here's another one. What if we wind up recognizing the same people over and over, right? I think it's always good to be specific with certain formats and moments of recognition, but that doesn't mean only certain people, right? You're not just tagging Betty as an employee of the day every day, or a Mike as the new hire of the week, right? You can recognize cross-functionally as well as department teams for specific accomplishments and initiatives, specific behaviors, specific values. You can recognize a project for its results, and therefore all the people are involved, right? So it works as this glue rather than a divider, which I think so many of us think it can become. So we're in a talent crunch, everybody. Everybody knows that. I've been talking a lot about that, right? We've been experiencing this for a while, and the need to better ensure our top talent stays is very important, right? So don't underestimate recognition when it comes to this. Top performers also deserve our appreciation. They are likely an inspiration to others. Think about it, right? And showing how hard they work is also conveying your company's values and their cultures to your colleagues, right? So they're going to kind of notice it if you're not appreciating the MVP, believe me, right? What if recognizing people so much turns into a crutch? Okay, I get this one a lot, right? Recognition is not a crutch if it's an integral part of your work culture. So make it a continual cadence within that fabric of the workflow, right? Don't see it as, for instance, a digitally delivered substitute for a more meaningful communication face-to-face. Feeling underappreciated for contributions is the second biggest thing hindering engagement. 1 in every 4 workers, and this is 26%, says it's the #1 reason for feeling disengaged, according to a recent research by Achievers. Keep that in mind. So after you actually institute a program, you're going to be reassessing, you're going to be recalibrating to fine tune, and you can use analytics to show how this correlates, improvements or not. Okay, so how do we do all this? How often should recognition happen in your workplace? I think it's going to be different for everyone, obviously, right? There's a number of factors to consider when determining cadence. You want to structure a program by asking these 9 questions, and then you want to map the program's framework and functions to these answers to create that cadence that suits your needs, okay? So schedule, what schedule are we on? Workflow, what cycles run the workflow? Crunch times, when are we most under pressure? Cross functions, how much do we operate cross-functionally and in what capacity? Here's the biggie, everybody. It's the C word, communication. What bridges do we have to cross to reach people? Social. How easy is it to communicate across social media? And what channels would be best suited to our workforce? Moments. What kind of recognition occasions do we have now? Goals. What are our short-term goals in terms of recognition? And what are our long-term goals? And last but certainly not least, surveys. Have we surveyed our employees to find out what they need? All right. So let's talk about how to build a formal recognition program. And I love this quote from Ken Blanchard. Feedback is the breakfast of champions. And I truly, truly believe this. Recognition and feedback are part of the same dynamic when it comes to modern talent management. They are powerful ways to boost your workforce and motivate your teams. And at the same time, you're going to be ensuring this alignment and growth. In 2020, only 19% of employees report they're very engaged and plan to stay at my employer a long time, okay? That's too high, right? I can hear the sighs from you all in the audience right now, believe me. Recognition is one of your solutions, okay? Keep that in mind. You're not without power here, okay? So what I want each of you to think about is building some sort of a formal program, right? Let's talk about how to get there, because I know it's not easy. So we're going to talk about RISE, right? This is a simple and clear method for building cadences and establishing that continuous cycle of recognition. It's regular. You want to recognize your employees at least once a week. You want to build routine into that schedule, right? It's immediate. The sooner you can recognize an individual for a particular behavior, the more likely they will repeat it. It's specific. You want to give meaningful recognition that is of personal importance to the recipient, not something random. Avoid random here. You don't look good. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't look good. Encourage your employees to recognize their peers. This kind of culture of recognition will only be achieved once everybody's involved in the process, right? You don't want it to feel forced. It needs to feel natural. And that's a really big goal for a lot of teams right now. And it's not always easy to get here. I totally get it. But, you know, hopefully these tips are helping you think about, if I was to put something in place, what could it look like? So as you're thinking about building a formal recognition program, I think the path to recognition should be filled with input from a range of people and transparency. I'm going to give you a little fun fact. If you involve your workforce in a recognition program, you're already recognizing their value. You are already demonstrated that you want their input and feedback. You're already practicing more effective recognition. So as long as you plan on taking actionable steps in it by addressing their feedback, which you should, if you're not transparent, though, about this process, too, you're going to be sending the wrong message. Not great optics there, okay, everyone? So follow this approach if you're thinking about getting into this, right? Reach out to your workforce and your managers on their needs and objectives. Start with a central platform that is easily accessible and easily scalable. You want to ensure it's accessible to everybody across the workplace and easily found, right? Don't make it frustrating for everybody. You want to make it navigatable, right? And it has to reflect your employer brand. span the whole organization wherever you have locations, including remote and contract workers. Enable these people to reach each other with recognition and feedback. Like, open up those channels, okay? Make it socially enabled. Integrate with social channels. You can vault a recognition gesture into some sort of a shared good news across the entire organization. Get the data. I cannot emphasize this enough. Get the data started and keep it flowing. You want to know how your recognition is working, so start with the metrics. You can see who is using what, such as reward points or social boost, and start to track not only participation but performance. You want to adjust the cadences. You may be conducting daily or weekly recognitions. You may have left it up to your managers to convey recognitions as they see fit, right? Task by task or after particular efforts. See how employees are responding, and only then adjust that frequency to get better results. Okay, I want to make sure everyone is still with us. I know there's a lot of info here. So we are going to turn this over to you. I'm going to invite you to answer this question. And if you want to answer more than one, you go with your bad self, okay? So let's get to some feedback in the spirit of this event. What does your organization recognize employees for? Living the values, reaching a goal, leading a team, performing better than others, or just kind of being awesome, just kind of being yourself? What do you think out there?
Lots of folks giving lots of answers here. We'll let it roll another 10 seconds, Megan.
All righty.
Oh, that's fantastic, folks. I'm going to end the poll and I will show the results to Megan. And here you go.
Whoa, look at you. We've got 54% of you living the values. We've got 64% of you saying reaching a goal, 23% saying leading a team. Interesting. 38% performing better than others. And I love this one the best. 35% being generally awesome. I mean, I love that some of you responded to just being generally awesome, by the way. No, that's not random. That's fun and it's real, right? But I think there's many, many aspects of recognition to choose from here. And, you know, again, they don't have to all be calibrated. Human nature is very open to good news, right? And we need it. We need more of this. So keep it up. I love this audience. I tell you, you guys are really, you're rocking my world today. I gotta be honest with you guys. So let's talk about the best tools for recognition for today's workforce. And I love this quote from Pamela, who's the VP of HCM Transformation and Thought Leadership over at Oracle. People want to know they matter and they want to be treated as people. That's the new talent contract. I mean, seriously, everybody, how simple is this, right? I want you to take a moment and think about the last time someone communicated to you how much you matter. Not a loved one. We're not talking about the Valentine's Day dinner that happened, right? But at work. The last time someone said, "You're doing great, I appreciate you, you are the employee of the week." Or the last time you were the one conveying that to someone else, right? Did you get a thank you emoji or a thumbs up? That counts, right? Social recognition includes these tiny moments, and guess what? They all add up. So think about that for a minute, right? So let's talk about tools. As you set up cadence and frequency in a recognition program, you can also consider variety, range, options, as well as what the recognition program ought to be able to do, right? It's not isolated tools with no relation to one another. It's a chain of interconnected features and functions, right? So I'm going to give you just a sample here. A recognition chain may look something like this: recognition, rewards, communication, listening, coaching, measurements, analytics, benchmarking, and here's the most important word: action. All of these are vital to a recognition culture. As a simple, for instance, listening tools can do surveys, they can do check-ins, they can solicit feedback, they can bring employees into the cycle of communication and conversation. Coaching is critical to employee growth, but at times I think it's hard for managers to find coachable moments and opportunities. They get kind of caught up with, oh, is that the right thing to do? Recognition tools can show employees how they're doing and enable managers to coach them in the right directions as they happen during the workflow. But what happens as you create a cadence cycle of recognition is that all of those tools can happen naturally and be used by the whole workforce. So there's a whole range of aspects to recognition and engagement happening at the same time. Frequency builds on itself, right? So until recognition is simply part of the air that we all breathe, and I'm not holding my breath right now, okay? It's part of your job, right? It's just a part of how we work. So we're getting into the nuts and bolts here, and I love being able to list the tools, right? You should be able to see recognition happening and the ripples it has throughout the workforce in terms of engagement, employee feedback, and in some cases, performance. But it's about creating a culture, not occasions, and bolstering workforce sentiment, not just productivity. It should feel like recognition can always happen and that as you need this, right, you can always take a look in real time as to how it's all working. So I'm going to read off this list, right, and this includes the features of recognition. I want to make sure you have these in your toolbox. Surveys, dashboards, profiles, messages, shout-outs, check-ins, private, public, personal, shared, verbal, informal, email, formal, momentary, I love that one, real-time, instant, cadenced, weekly, monthly, and yes, we've got best ofs. You can't have those, right, without anything else. So these are some tools I want you to keep in mind. So let's talk about how to make it meaningful, because to me, this is the most important piece of all this, and effective. Provide employees with encouragement, stimulus, and make them feel like they're part of the company's mission, says Anne over at, she's a former CEO at Xerox Corporation. I love that quote. And it says it all, right? A fun fact, she started as a sales rep for Xerox in 1976. By 2001, she was the CEO. Her foundation was working, right, with customers, and she always had that connection to the brand. We all want to feel like the work we're doing has meaning and value to ourselves as well as the company. And that's a way to maintain that connection to your brand. So I really enjoyed that one. Okay, so let's talk about making it meaningful and effective. So 26% of employees rank recognition for my work as one of the top 3 key factors in staying with their current employer, according to the Complacency Effect Report. To make recognition matter, you need to make people feel like they matter. Here are 3 absolutely critical directionals on making recognition matter, making it meaningful, making it effective, right? Key recognition to values, goals, mission, and purpose. The Complacency Report found that only 11% of employers survey employees more than once a year. Surveying is profoundly straightforward, and it's a great way to find out how people are thinking about values, goals, mission, and purpose. And then you want to work to craft those recognitions that celebrate those aspects. Recognize actions and behaviors that support them. A cadence series of such moments really adds up and makes a strong impression. Recognition is an ever-present opportunity to create better alignment, so use it that way, right? I mean, so often people just don't. So don't just reward for performance, right? This goes back to the concern that rewarding only some and not others, that thing I talked about, right? Don't incentivize and commoditize. You want to strike a balance between recognitions and rewards. This will help to further democratize the program and will also make employees more comfortable about joining. It's the flow of messages and the cycle of communications that adds meaning on a day-to-day basis or a weekly basis. Rewards can then stand out as real occasions, which set up these milestones, right? Then they share it and everybody feels good, right? So you really want to keep it a two-way street. You want to get everybody involved. I think there's so many ways to reach out to employees as well and get their input. Surveys, chatbots, right? Some platforms offer terrific engagement chatbots that can just check in and ask a question. It's super cool, right? You can offer assistance. Perhaps you can even offer some sort of a simple visual poll to an employee and base those answers, right, on something they can take to the next level, things that matter to them. Don't shy away from this terrific and modern tool, right? We are all using chatbots now. So the more you use them, the more they learn, right? And the more helpful they are ultimately. So I think chatbots are definitely a tool that each and every one of you can use. Okay, yes, I'm bringing up the generation. Surprise, surprise, everyone. How to make it meaningful and effective and making it work for, yes, Gen Z. Regarding Gen Z, SHRM continues to do a lot of really great work here on Gen Z. They were born in 1996 and later, for those of you who are not taking notes at home. And let me give you some of these findings that they found in a study by Universum. 37% are concerned they will be in the job and organization and that it will not match their personality. Okay, kind of interesting, right? 36% are concerned with a lack of development opportunities. 33% are concerned about underperforming. 28% are worried about not fulfilling their career goals. So how does this tie into recognition, you wonder? Moments of recognition strung together form a story of their role, their importance, their performance, their growth. When you reach out to Gen Z, make sure you're addressing their development, their standards for themselves, their own career goals, and do it with recognitions, plural, right? Do it more than once. That's a powerful and meaningful way to engage this generation. I'm going to give you some more stats. 60% say they want to have a positive impact on the world. They spot inauthenticity a mile away. So don't write recognition in fake, okay? Don't say, you got mad skills, or don't say awesome, right? Don't say flex, or that meeting was lit. Don't say it unless you really are 19 years old, okay? I mean, we can do that for fun and everything. And sometimes if you follow me on Twitter, sometimes I do that, but that's okay. That's a whole nother topic. You want to be yourself, right? You want to be your older self, for that matter. They know they need to catch up and get their heads around social media and then get their heads out of social media. And they want to, right? They're not as driven by social media as some of the other generations, by the way. They are new to the workforce, new to the dynamics of the workplace, most likely, right? So don't assume they don't know they did a good job. In terms of delivery, they actually appreciate face-to-face and are getting used to phone calls, but the landline, what? Did somebody just say landline? Yeah, okay. It's all about mobile and how mobile can work, right? So you want your recognition program to not just be mobile friendly, you want it to function with speed, full functionality, right, on that smartphone. If the recognition system sends a text message, keep it brief. Don't require a tedious long login procedure, right, just to have them land on a screen that says, thank you for attending this mandatory meeting. In general, what I'm trying to say is keep it crisp, keep it clear, quick. Don't think paragraphs. Don't even necessarily think sentences. They want communication back, right? This generation wants to work on their interpersonal skills, IRL, in real life. So give them a chance to acknowledge, to reflect, to give their own take on how they wanted to do well or understand how the effort aligns with the larger goals of the company. Giving them a way to connect the dots and communicate that back provides them with a chance to grow and learn as they do. And that says you value their development, which is very, very important to this generation, okay? All right, well, let's talk about how leaders can steer a recognition-driven transformation. I'm going to give you a quote from Charles Schwab. I consider my ability to arouse enthusiasm among my people the greatest asset I possess. And the way to develop that best is in the person. It's by appreciation and encouragement. So he is the founder of I'm tongue-tied right now. Maybe somebody in the audience can help me. Charles Schwab Corporation. But anyways, leaders, you know, you need to show everyone the way. And this is a great example of that, right? You got to lead. You got to be part of this, you know? You can't set it and forget it. I know you want to out there. I know you're tempted, but you can't, right? So leaders, you got to show the way. Your employees notice when you're not involved in their day-to-day experience. They pay attention to whether or not initiatives or programs around company culture have participation. If not, it's going to be harder naturally to get their full buy-in because they don't feel like the company, as represented by their leaders, care enough to get involved. Here's some interesting data from Achievers. Only 33% say leadership is even minimally committed to improving company culture and employee experience. Only 23% say leaders are more than or very committed to improving company culture and employee experience. But when leaders are involved, when they put their name and their role behind improving recognition, it's a really powerful shift. And of course, frequency makes that not only possible, it makes it easy to be dialed in. A clear mandate from leaders is a green light for employees to set aside their cynicism and join in. Leaders shouldn't just walk in and walk out, so to speak. They really do need to be playing an active and continuous role. A boost, a moment, a click, a virtual high five can boost the morale all at the same time, right? And again, the power of frequency administered through technology is that leaders have a clear path to the workforce. These old walls blocking communication are down. And instead of detachment, they're connected. You're part of the cadence. And certain to leadership, this is going to credit you as a leader, right? It's not this matter of wanting to have nothing to do with it, which unfortunately I've seen a whole heck of a lot of in my career, right? Most of the really terrific leaders that I know and that I've collaborated with and studied over the years, they think about recognition a lot. But what they didn't have before is the means to carry it out and the means to infuse it into the whole culture. And guess what? Now we do. We got it. So no more excuses, right? So let's talk about cadences that work. Let's talk about Discover and Air Canada. I want to briefly touch upon two organizations that found the sweet spot in terms of frequency and used it to help steer a powerful transformation. And again, it was two brands. They did it, right? If you were at the 2019 HR Tech Conference, you may have been there when Discover got on stage with Achievers to talk about how it used recognition programs to motivate and bring together more than 16,500 global employees around the world, delivering a really great customer experience. It was one of the many light bulb moments at that conference. Discover explained that they made it a mandate to share their essential belief. Happy employees equal happy customers. Maybe it just wasn't a saying, right? They instituted a whole range of tools to make it happen, which I love the most. Here we have a real life case study, right? Here were the requirements. Make it customizable, make it be consistent across every channel. You want to make it accessible to a global population, right? It's really an infrastructure of recognition that unifies the whole organization, and it provides a lot of powerful metrics and analytics so you can see how it drives results. In Discover's case, increased sales, increased customer satisfaction, decreased voluntary attrition. The recognitions included a cadence of expressions, including gratitude, simply saying thank you, a high five, right? Ways for employees to recognize each other, ways to accumulate points in a really fun rewards program. So here, the whole range and frequency of recognition served to provide a very differentiated employee experience, and that became a model, in essence, for what creates a differentiated customer experience. So that's a really important idea here, right? The recognition culture in your organization is going to have an effect on your culture of your brand, right? And the way your employees approach and communicate with your customers, right? So we've got Air Canada, and in 2019, we also saw that they were once again named as Montreal's top employer for the 6th year in a row, right? So this is a company where employees are consulted on nearly everything, including how do we design our office storage space, right? So really interesting stuff. They have 9,000 employees in the Montreal area, and Achievers named to it the 50 most recognized engaged workplaces list in 2019 as well. So recognition is a key factor in their work culture and HR, right? And they're kind of living it. We're seeing this cadence across teams, across people, workforces, departments. It's multi-directional. And that's what I love so much about these stories about Air Canada and Discover. Okay, so listen, we're getting to the end of this. I appreciate you all are hanging in there with us. The power of frequency. I think we've covered a lot of ground today, and I want to thank you for being part of this webinar. I want to recognize each and every one of you, right? I think what we've learned today is that frequency is what creates that sense of unity and shapes the culture. There are so many tools at our disposal right now that provide visibility, transparency, and the look and feel you want for your workplace, right? Your employees are going to be thrilled to weigh in and provide their preferences, their opinions, their ideas. Take them. Take these, everybody, okay? The workplace of today is more democratic than ever. It encompasses various generations. It's more and more diverse. It's consolidated over this digital workspace, if not a physical one. We are literally all over the globe, and often, right? We always factor in the input of our people. We need to reach them. But we also need to let them know how grateful we are that they're here, right? Working with us, helping our organizations push into markets, stay in position, engage with customers, make a mark on the world, right? Frequency and cadence turn recognition into this engine of engagement and alignment, and it's even more important than that, right? They're here to give meaning and purpose to the work we all do. So I want to thank you so much for being here with me today, and I'd love to get to some of your questions. So yeah, Rhonda.
All right,
We're going to
Megan.
take it over to you.
Perfect. I am here with you. I'm going to try and do these questions the order in which they came in. Lots of great questions. First off here, Joel is asking, why is it not enough to do recognition as it happens naturally and informally?
Well, I mean, great question. I think one reason, unfortunately, is that there's no such thing as a standard practice when it comes to these moments of recognition, right? Managers, who are the ones who are most likely to be expected to make these, they come, guess what? They're people, right? They're humans. We come in all shapes, sizes, and attitudes towards praise and feedback. And many of us are busy, right? So busy that to stop and take the time and energy to go recognize something, whether it's in person, on an email, on a text, whatever, is not necessarily going to take precedence over that flashing red light of projects, right, that's happening. So I'm not blaming managers on this, don't get me wrong, but they have enough on their plate. But you do have to be aware of this, right? And I remember listening to a manager talking about his department. It was like 2,000 people, and he had this whole series of managers who ran the smaller cross-functional units. They were all over the map, like Hong Kong, India, California, and there's no practical way for him to set this up, right? He needed some sort of a program to provide him and his group with these tools. And he said, you know, I don't need a reason, I just need a way to do it. So that really resonated with me, because I thought, well, okay, maybe we're missing something here. And I think the other reason that we see is you don't have a recognition platform. If you don't have it in place, you can't learn from it, right? You can't run analytics. You can't set up benchmarking, metrics, all of these things that are going to provide visibility across the workforce. I think, you know, I'm going to go back to the data word, right? I think data is an incredible source of learning and growth. So why forego it, right? Hopefully that helps.
Oh, perfect. Thanks so much. And then from Christine, what is the ideal cadence for recognition in an organization, or is there one?
Another great question. I think more important than the ideal cadence is a sense of appropriate response. So we need to know how we're doing in real time, and I think that's one of the key problems we have with performance reviews. We don't remember what happened 6 months ago and tend to see work with a bias towards recency, right? So what we're going to likely remember from that far back isn't this great milestone, but a scary, hairy, sort of like stressful situation. So I really love what some of the research for this webinar uncovered, and that's including the study on how we process negative news versus positive news. So feedback and recognition in real time is always going to mean more. That said, I would consider recognition at least once a week and daily for smaller recognitions. I think depending on your organization, I consider a whole range of frequencies from moment-based or task-based to weekly cadences such as MVP of the week, taking initiative awards, maybe living the values recognition. There's so many different creative ways we can slice this onion, right? The more options, the more people can actually get involved. And guess what? The more participation we're going to see, because that's really the rub here, right? That kind of participation then generates this data that can then make revelations to us about our company culture, right? So I'd also consider more formal recognitions, or at least thank yous, and make sure these are not always based on performance or incentives, but just genuine goodness of how you feel in the moment. Make them real,
Absolutely. And okay, what came next? Here's one. Why are managers so reluctant to institute a regular program of recognition?
Well, yeah, that's why I'm here today. That's why we're all here, right? I think it's a great question. And, I'm not in the blame the manager school of thought. Don't get me wrong, first of all, but I think managers are heroes. They are warriors. I think they're often unsung. So let me just, take a moment to say thank you to all of you out there who are managing people. I appreciate what you do, and we all should, but I think a regular program of recognition may also seem like it's this burden, right? It's something, if it's not integrated into your workflow, it should be, right? It's interesting to me that recognition is really about being employee focused, but I think some managers may think that tending to a recognition program is going to take focus away from the employees. And see where I'm going here? It's a weird situation we're in, right? So I think if you have something that's easy to navigate, easy to use, and isn't adding labor, right? I think that's going to ease up some of the managerial concerns that I often hear about. There also may be managers who aren't comfortable with this kind of digital technology. Let's be honest, right? Not everybody's comfortable on social. Not everybody's feeling like I want to be fluid in terms of who I am and how it relates to all this. So I don't think it's intentional, but it certainly affects the way things are delivered. And I think it's really important to find out if there's pushback or resistance among your managers, right? Find out why. Find out everything, ask questions, and then, address these with, first of all, you want to be compassionate, right? You want to be open-minded, but then you want to address it with action. Everybody needs to take action around this. I can't stress it enough.
Awesome. Okay. And why is recognition in real time and soon after something happens or something the employees accomplishes, why is that type of recognition so much more effective?
I did start to cover this, I think, earlier, but I'm going to get into it with you all on a different angle with recognition in real time. And I think that's one of the byproducts, if you will, is that you can't help undo something less than positive, right? It's like once it happens, it's done. And what I mean by that is with real-time, responsive, quickly delivered recognition, employees who are feeling somewhat frustrated or demoralized or simply tired, they can kind of feel supported as if they're feeling that way. So in real time means the recognition is basically connected to the effort. And soon, I think that culture shifts so that the effort feels connected to the recognition. And when we get there, that's a pretty powerful transformation that's going to take place. So hopefully that helps. I know it's a little tricky.
I think that would help. Okay, another one here. Jesse asks, can you talk about the critical components to recognition besides the praise?
Yeah, great question, because there really is so much more to recognition besides this, right? I think you want to think of it as a dynamic, flowing program that has sort of this current of feedback and attention, of gratitude, of what we hope is generally positive. And then I think there's room for plenty of feedback. And that isn't necessarily praise all the time, right? So even the praise itself within the context of work and of objectives is there. So it's not just praise without meaning, right? But it's praise with objectives and purpose. So I think along with feedback is surveys, right? And gathering information, checking in, asking questions. I think it's really interesting the way some innovators are using chatbots to check in with employees, as I mentioned. And based on what employees respond, they're then going to that next level and asking meaningful questions. So add this to the aspect of measurement, analytics, right, data, full visibility, and then we get into inclusiveness, right? A recognition program enables you to be inclusive in terms of acknowledgments and participation, right? So you can set up a network of communications, of messages. Let's use social channels, right? You can expand outwards into your whole workforce and even beyond. Then points, right? Everybody loves points right now. So I think a rewards program built in is awesome, right? So recognition is way more than just a way to schedule praise. That's actually just a small part of it when you look at the big picture. It's really more like a culture than a function. And so that's why you keep hearing me bring that word culture up time and time again, because like the more it's baked in, the more it feels real, the more you're going to get out of this, and the more it's going to be kind of this natural, seamless process that happens as people are talking to each other and using the tools. So hopefully that helps.
Okay, and I think we have time for one more, Megan. And for those of you, there are still so many great questions that have come through. So we will make sure that the folks at Achievers, that someone does follow up with you. So one more is, could you give an example of how the tools would look in real life? And Gordon asked this.
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I think the best way to do that is probably get under the hood and demo some products, right? And look and feel at what the technology is like. That's probably my best advice for how it's really going to work in real life. But again, you got to get in there and ask the questions and understand what those pain points are first before you then bring it to, hey, let's find some tools to help us do this. It's got to be baked in to your culture, but then get out there and use products, use them yourself, demo, hopefully that helps.
Absolutely. I'll give you a second there, Megan, before I close up shop. If you have any closing comments that you'd like to share with folks.
Oh, I just want to thank everyone for being here and being present. I want to recognize each of you, and I'm always here for questions after the fact.
That is wonderful. And I myself, I would like to take this time to thank Megan for such an excellent presentation, and for all of you for joining us today. You are valued HR.com members, and we are so grateful. So if you would like to view the webcast again, the archive recording will be available on HR.com within 24 hours. We're pretty quick with that. Your webcast credit will show in your HR.com account within 2 business days. And we will also send you an email with the credit information. Your feedback is important to us. It's important to Megan. It's important to Achievers. So please take a moment to fill out the survey that has opened in a new browser on your computer. This concludes the webcast, folks. Enjoy the rest of your day. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.